The film opens with David waking in his luxurious apartment, preparing for work. Spotting a single gray hair, he plucks it out before driving his Ferrari through an eerily empty New York City. Alarmed, he abandons the car and runs, only to wake again in bed to a woman's voice urging him to open his eyes. The episode is revealed as a memory. David, now in prison, recounts his story to McCabe, his psychologist. At nearly 33, David was head of a global publishing empire, feeling invincible, until one accusation destroyed everything. In his memories, David's day repeats. Julie, a beautiful aspiring actress, wakes in his bed after a casual night together. He promises to call and leaves to meet his friend Brian for racquetball. Brian teases him for avoiding real love, saying that without bitterness, sweetness loses meaning. Arriving late to a board meeting, David dismisses the 7 members as the 7 dwarfs. He senses they still see him as the privileged heir to his father's fortune. In prison, David wears a rubber mask, refusing to discuss his face. McCabe insists he must be honest. He's accused of murder, but David denies killing anyone. David describes his father, a daring businessman celebrated for wild adventures, who once wrote a book on success but barely mentioned his son. 10 years earlier, David's parents died in a drunk driving accident, leaving him in charge of the company alongside the 7-member board. Could they have framed him to reclaim power? At his lavish birthday party, David meets Sophia, brought by Brian, and is instantly drawn to her. A fired employee, Tech, warns him of a board conspiracy. David rehires him with a pay raise. Returning to his room, David finds Julie waiting. Jealous of Sophia, she tries to seduce him, but he refuses. Later, David and Sophia talk privately in his office, where he shows her a Monet painting, The Vanilla Sky. Their connection deepens as Brian jokes that David will never know what it's like to go home alone. David drives Sophia home, confessing his fear of heights, not of falling, but of the impact. He admires her modest, artistic life and tells her to stay true to her art. They talk late into the night, sketch each other, and share a quiet bond. When he jokes that his life changed 5 minutes ago, she replies, "Every minute offers a new chance to change everything." At dawn, she kisses him goodbye. David seems to have it all: wealth, charm, and control. But everything collapses when he encounters Julie the next day. Bitter and jealous, she confronts him, then invites him for a drive. As she speeds recklessly, she declares her love. When David panics, she drives off a bridge. Julie dies instantly. David survives but is horribly disfigured. After a month-long coma, he awakens with severe facial injuries. For a man defined by his looks, the deformity is unbearable. Surgeons can't repair him. They offer a prosthetic mask which disgusts him. Tech warns that the board plans to declare him insane to seize the company. Determined to fight back, David seeks Sophia. When they meet again, he jokes bitterly about his face. Sophia is both relieved and heartbroken to see him. Despite everything, she agrees to go out with him that night. Wearing his mask, David arrives at the club, where Sophia and Brian wait. They're visibly uncomfortable with his appearance. Sophia slips away to the bathroom. Brian suggests he remove the mask, but David, irritated, tells him to leave if he's embarrassed. The tension rises when Brian admits Sophia asked him to come along, and says he misses the old David, calling this new one offensive. Offended, David rips off his mask and storms to the bar, mixing alcohol with medication to numb his pain. Drunk and lost, he tries to recreate his first meeting with Sophia, which only disturbs her. When she demands to know why he's acting this way, he presses her for answers until she softly says, "I'll tell you in another life, when we're both cats." Fascinated, David meows playfully, while Sophia breaks down in tears. Leaving the bar, David continues his emotional spiral. Sophia walks away alone, refusing Brian's offer to take her home. Furious, David accuses Brian of telling Sophia about Julie. Brian denies it and leaves, heading in the same direction as Sophia's apartment. Convinced that Brian and Sophia are together, David runs to her apartment, but the street is empty. Exhausted, he collapses at her doorstep. The accident changes everything for David. Suddenly, he's forced to face what he's never known before: pain, mockery, rejection, the bitter side of life. Before the crash, David took pride in his appearance. It was the foundation of his confidence. But after losing his looks, he becomes insecure, resentful, and distant, pushing even Sophia away and sinking into loneliness. As always, unwilling to face what's unpleasant, David makes a drastic choice, though we won't learn what it is until near the end. Strangely, the next morning, his life takes an almost magical turn. Sophia wakes him on the street with a soft, "Open your eyes." She helps him up, saying she fell in love with the man he used to be and wants to see that version again. She embraces him, and together they walk beneath a vanilla-colored sky. In prison, David tells McCabe that he and Sophia were a great couple, but the psychologist doubts it, noting that guards have heard David shouting for someone named Ellie, someone he doesn't know. Back in his memories, the surgeon, once arrogant, now speaks kindly, suggesting a new reconstructive procedure. David agrees, and during the operation he sees a man in a suit watching him. Afterward, he looks like his old self again. Happy, he resumes life with Sophia, sharing laughter, intimacy, and long conversations, living as if inside a dream. One day, while dining with Brian and Sophia, David spots the same mysterious man from surgery, unsettling him. That night, he dreams his face is disfigured. He wakes in panic, rushes to the mirror, everything seems fine. But when he returns to bed and believes Sophia is in his arms, he realizes in horror it's Julie. Terrified, he ties her up, demanding to know what she's done with Sophia. Julie, confused, insists she is Sophia. Alarmed, David calls the police, but they arrest him instead. Tech bails him out and shows photos of a bruised Julie, calling her Sophia, accusing David of harming her. He begins to think someone has set him up. In the hallway, he hears bells and sees people urging him to wake up, telling him he's dreaming. Outside, Brian waits, furious that David hurt Sophia. David insists it was Julie, but Brian reminds him Julie died in the crash. Suspicious, David hints Brian's part of a conspiracy. Disappointed, Brian leaves. Now paranoid, David no longer knows whom to trust, or whether he's even awake. He goes to a bar and sees the same mysterious man again. The stranger says everything has an explanation and urges David to face his fears, hinting he can shape the world around him. Skeptical, David wishes for silence, and instantly, everyone stops talking. In prison, David recalls the man and a contract he once signed. Agitated, he admits he no longer knows what's real. He remembers someone died, but not who. David returns to Sophia's apartment only to find everything about her, photos, drawings, now shows Julie. Julie appears, claiming to be Sophia, but he refuses to believe it. Then something strange happens. Julie goes to the bathroom, and when she comes out, she's Sophia again. Relieved, David hugs her, but his relief turns to horror when, during an intimate moment, Sophia becomes Julie once more. Losing control, David strangles her, believing she's Julie, only to realize he has killed Sophia. Hearing this, McCabe laments that he couldn't help David more during the trial but needed more answers, and their time has run out. He believes claiming David suffered a temporary psychotic break is the best defense, though the jury may not accept it. As McCabe prepares to leave, David spots a TV commercial on a guard screen, an ad for Life Extension and its cryogenic preservation program. Everything clicks. Ellie stands for Ellie, Life Extension. He calls for McCabe and is taken to the Life Extension building, where they meet Rebecca Dearborn. She explains their service allows a person's body to be sealed and frozen after death. David notices a line in the brochure about lucid dreaming. Upon death, you will be resurrected and live forever in a dream, young, ageless, and free, continuing your life in a future of your own choosing. You'll forget your death and live as if inside your favorite movie or song. The video adds that if problems arise, technical support will assist, and that support is the mysterious man, Edmund Ventura. David finally understands he hasn't been living at all. He's trapped in his own mind. He removes the mask and sees his disfigured face, realizing it's all been a nightmare. Desperate, he screams for technical support, and instantly, Edmund appears in an elevator. Originally, David wore the mask to hide his shame, but perhaps it means something deeper, a symbol of how we hide from truths we can't bear. His dream world acts as a mask too, concealing his pain and the reality of his life. When he realizes it's all a dream, he also faces his true self, the beginning of his acceptance of reality. This mirrors modern life, especially our relationship with technology. It lets David live in a world that feels better than the real one. In today's world, with social media, we see only what we like and show polished versions of ourselves, masks hiding our struggles, just as David hides behind illusion. It's as if we all live our own lucid dreams, using the digital world to avoid what we dislike about our lives. But the film's message is clear. You can run far, but if the storm is inside you, it will follow you everywhere. We can't escape who we are or our unresolved conflicts. They return until we face them. Sometimes pain is so strong that distraction helps us survive, but it must come with honesty when we truly confront our feelings. Edmund finally reveals he sold David the lucid dream package over 150 years ago. He clarifies that David's current world is a mental creation and reminds him of what really happened. The dream began the moment David passed out on the pavement outside the club. Since then, nothing he's experienced has been real, at least not in the conventional sense. David shaped his dream around his ideals, a vanilla sky like the one in Monet's painting at the Maccabee exhibit. In that vision, he saw the father he always wanted and, in Sophia, the love he had always idealized. But in reality, the morning after the club, David woke up alone and never saw Sophia again. Later, he fought the board for control of his company, regaining it only with help from tech support. Still, David missed Sophia deeply. He was alone and couldn't bear the pain. That was when he discovered Life Extension online and signed up. He took pills to end his life, and the company preserved his body in cryogenic sleep, allowing him to awaken later inside his dream. That morning on the pavement, David begins to remember everything. Edmund tells him that Brian was a true friend. He had even organized a 3-day funeral for David, which Sophia attended in tears. She never forgot that one night they shared when love seemed possible. David's habit of escaping pain led him to Life Extension, seeking a perfect dream world shaped by his mind. But his subconscious held not only desires, but also fears and unresolved trauma. Though Life Extension promised a paradise without sorrow, David's conflicts were too strong, turning his dream into a nightmare. He is haunted by his choices, believing that if he hadn't entered Julie's car, he could have been happy with Sophia. No matter how Life Extension tried to suppress his suffering, it persisted even 150 years later. He never fully processed what happened with Julie or how it ruined things with Sophia. So, even though in his dream he regained his looks and reunited with Sophia, he couldn't find real happiness. The memory of Julie tormented him. His guilt made Julie replace Sophia in his dream, trapping him inside his own subconscious, unable to escape his unresolved emotions. As Edmund tells him, David must face his fears and sorrow to regain control of his life. Only then can he find maturity and meaning. In the elevator, David reflects that getting into Julie's car changed everything, teaching him that the smallest moments often matter most. On the rooftop, Edmund explains that David's subconscious created obstacles, turning his lucid dream into a nightmare. But now, the glitch is fixed. David must choose, stay in his perfect dream or wake up in the real world, where his face can finally be healed, though without any promise of perfection, because the sweet is never as sweet without the bitter. Through suffering, David learns acceptance. He realizes we can only value joy when we've known pain. The title Vanilla Sky refers to the soft golden sky from Monet's painting, a symbol of ideal perfection, beautiful only because we've lived through gray days. What would David gain by living in a reality where everything came easily? If every wish were fulfilled, would he truly be happy? We find joy because we've known longing. Success means nothing without the risk of loss, and love matters only because heartbreak is possible. His mind brings tech support, McCabe, and Brian to the rooftop. David asks how to wake up. Edmund says, by jumping. David had chosen this scenario himself, to face his fear of heights, ensuring the choice wouldn't be easy. By confronting his greatest fear, David can prove to himself that he's ready to return to real life. When Edmund asks what happiness means, David says he wants a real life, no more dreams. As his final wish, he asks them to read his mind. Under the bright sun and a vanilla sky, David sees Sophia one last time. They kiss and his scars fade. He admits his mistakes and repeats her words. Every passing minute is another chance to turn it all around. Sophia promises to find him again. I'll see you in another life, when we are both cats, David replies. As he says goodbye, his scars vanish, symbolizing that he's healed and ready to move on. By letting go of Sophia's idealized image, he frees himself from illusion. His restored face represents a renewed David, wiser and at peace. The story reminds us that growth requires time, honesty, and courage to face pain. Life can't always be sweet. We need the bitter to truly understand joy. And so, David jumps. As he falls, flashes of his life return, small, poetic moments that define his humanity. He remembers his parents, strangers' smiles, and the beauty of being alive. Finally, he recalls the face of the one person who gave his life meaning, Sophia. As he falls, a soft voice whispers, "Relax." David opens his eyes and wakes up, and with that the story ends here.